All right, so I'll go ahead and call the school board meeting into session. And of course, the second item on the agenda will be to read any changes to the agenda. So on consent agenda, we have correction to item 8.15. It should be an amendment to service agreement number 18-73, Northwest Florida State College. Added item 8.24, HRA contribution to new group medical insurance rating tiers, presented by Mr. Russ Frakes, Specialist, Risk Management. And this item is added as an emergency due to the time constraints imposed by the requirement of a 30-day open enrollment window that must be processed before the December payroll cycle. And then also we have deleted item 9.6, employee termination. So with that, board members, I'm looking for a motion.
Move it.
Excuse me. Mr. Bryant?
Mr. McInnes, is this the time?
To make a change to the
Yes.
agenda?
Yes.
Any changes we've made now, yes.
Yes. I would like to move item 8.11 to discussion, please.
All right. 8.11.
And if you could, 8.12 and 8.13 for me, and we'll talk about those two.
All right.
A lot of talking tonight.
Okay. 8.11, 8.12, and 8.13. We'll move all of those to discussion agenda. All right. With that, now I'm looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Walker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, board members, let's move on down past recognitions, past visitors, and move to section 5, public comment. And this will be members of the public desiring to address the school board. And so I have 3 cards here before me. And so, Mr. Attorney, I know that you'll give some advice to the folks when they come forward regarding guidelines and procedures. And the first card that we have submitted was by Ms. Mary Beth Mills. Ms. Mills, would you come forward, please? Welcome, Ms. Mills. It's okay.
You'll have 4 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay, and I'm supposed to state my name and address. Mary Beth Mills, 9 Carl Brandt Drive, Shalimar, Florida, 32579.
All right.
Way out of my comfort zone, way out.
It's okay. Sometimes we are too, so it'll be fine.
I am here just on behalf of myself. I teach at Choctaw, but I am not here on behalf of the school or Dr. Hale. I'm just here because I'm Mary Beth Mills, school teacher who needs to be awarded her best and brightest scholarship. So I have 2 questions, and one is one that I really have no input to at all, and that is why our county chooses to not participate in the portion of the best and brightest that would award scholarships to our school administrators when the state has the money sitting there and we don't even send people's names in. Other counties do, and it's no money coming out of the county, it's from the state. So I wondered why we don't participate in that. And I'll just let y'all figure that out. Number 2 is my issue, and I received the best and brightest, the $6,000 scholarship the first year it was offered. I was a teacher at Liza. They mailed my score in. I got a 24 estimated composite. I was awarded the scholarship. The next year, a job opening came up at Choctaw. It was near the end of the summer, and when I talked to HR, I said, will I still get this scholarship? They said, I don't see a problem. Typically, and it's in the statutes, once you are awarded it, unless you don't maintain your highly effective eval, then you will keep getting it. Well, I found out they didn't even submit my paperwork because they said I didn't qualify because the state had said, had sent them information saying you had to have a certain score. And I have all the emails and they're out of order now. It was from Kaiser Grant. It went to Lindsay Maxey, but it was October 22nd, 2015. saying you should not be using estimated percentages, which that's a different column on the ACT report. Mine was an estimated composite. So then I contacted the state, and they were actually very helpful. They sent an email stating that per the July 1, 2016 memo from Chancellor Lyons, the legislature did not give rulemaking authority to the Department of Education, and the department has no authority to supervise or review the eligibility determinations made by the district school boards. Each district school board should review the statute and make its own decision regarding eligibility questions. And my issue with this is the state wouldn't help me. They were nice and talked to me on the phone, but they kept saying, this is a county. You need to go to your school board, your school district. But HR, they just said no. They really would not. I mean, I had a phone number for the ACT lady they could call. Nobody would advocate for me, I guess. And I don't know why. So that's that. And I feel I am qualified and I want my money. I would never have taken the job at Chalk. I left a very great school and went to another very great school because my daughter wanted me there. She was in high school. My other 3 kids would have died if I was teaching at their school. She wanted me there, and I said, sure. There was a math opening. I would have never taken it if I knew I would lose $6,000.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Dr.
Is
White.
there any commentary,
Yes.
board members? Mr. Bryant?
First of all, Ms. Mills, I know you emailed all of us, and I told you out there in the audience, I apologize for that the information that I told you to look at was actually dealing with OTC and other teachers. So once I realized what you're looking at, I did ask Mr. Chambers. I sent your email to Mr. Chambers, and Ms. Jackson, I believe Mr. Chambers might have some answers for her. So if it's okay.
Do I go sit down to here, or do I stay here?
Ms. Mills, you can do it either way you want, and if you want, we'll let you come back if it's necessary. If you want to sit down, it's okay.
Okay.
And I can,
I'll just stay here.
okay, sure, you can stand to the side.
Okay.
Because I think Mr. Chambers is going to approach the microphone.
Hi. I didn't. Good.
All right. Board, Ms. Jackson, first of all, so to come up here for the best and the brightest again, I do feel for Ms. Mills. Once again, another fantastic teacher here in Okaloosa County, and it's another situation where the best and the brightest isn't necessarily clearly defined. So first of all, I want to go to the school principal piece that Ms. Mills referred to. Statute 1012.731(4)C says that a school principal identified pursuant to this statute is eligible to receive a scholarship under this section if he or she has served as a school principal at his or her school for at least 2 consecutive school years, including the current school year, and his or her school has a ratio of best and brightest teachers to other classroom teachers that is at the 80th percentile or higher for schools within the same grade group statewide, including elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and schools with a combination of grade levels. So that's what the statute says. Last year we awarded 3 of our administrators the best and the brightest scholarship. So we do that as statute defines.
Meeting all of those parameters.
Absolutely. So we do that. Now when it comes to the second piece of the best and the brightest, Mrs. Mills is correct. She has an estimated score that would qualify her for the best and the brightest scholarship. But the statute talks about the original score from the time that you actually took the assessment. So the original score does not meet that criteria, but the estimated score does. So when you actually look at the score report on her sheet, it absolutely gives an estimated score that would qualify.
It's an estimated composite.
Correct. That would
not a
qualify.
percentage.
I apologize. that would qualify, but the actual score that she received at the time she took the test does not qualify. So therefore, she would not be eligible for the scholarship. I think she did receive it at a charter school, but she has not received it, my understanding, for the past, I believe, 3 years was what was explained to me.
They will not submit my paperwork. But there's also
You want to come over to the microphone, Ms. Mills?
Well, there's also verbiage that states once you are awarded the scholarship, unless you lose your highly effective eval, you will keep getting it. And there's also verbiage in there that said the term school district includes the Florida School for Deaf and Blind and charter school governing boards. Once a classroom teacher is deemed eligible by the school district, the teacher shall remain eligible as long as he or she remains employed by the school district, and it goes on.
But can I just ask this question? The school district was not the one that first deemed you eligible. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
If the charter school is the one
Who
that deemed you
sent
eligible.
my information to the
Right.
state, and the state
Which-
approved it.
Which also becomes an equivocation as to whether or not charter schools are actually in the district.
Well, this
as we know.
says the term
Right.
school district includes the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind and charter school
Right.
governing boards.
Right.
So to me,
It's the same.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so, board members, any other comment or thoughts?
Well, the only comment I have, Marcus, is assuming that we determined from the fact that she was eligible at the charter school, if we, the information she just gave us, if we went ahead and gave her the scholarship, then the memo that I got from her indicated the state kind of led us to believe it was left up to the school board. But what
It's-
I'm asking,
absolutely.
Marcus, what I'm asking is if this board said, okay, we wanted to allow her to have the scholarship, well then, at some point in the future, is what's the ramifications if we do allow her to have it as she's had it in the past? And then somebody later on says, well, we shouldn't have. What's the ramifications? Are they gonna make us pay it back? Are they not gonna make us pay it back? Or, because now clearly what I saw is it indicated that they was putting it back on the school board again. So
Yes.
what I'm saying, if 3 members of this board decides that we want to allow her to have it, being she's had it in the past, even though it wasn't with us, then what will be our ramifications for doing that?
Do you mind if I make a comment?
Please.
So I mean this with all sincerity. So one, this is the difficult situation where we are being pitted against, not you, we are being pitted against our fantastic teachers. All I can share with you is that of what the statute says, to answer your question specifically, there would have to be an audit, and if there was an audit finding, we'd have to pay that, that money back. I believe the statute even says that the teacher would have to pay the money back. And would hope that that would not happen. So the worst case scenario would be that we would have to pay the money back.
In addition, do we know how many other employees would have been eligible under the same eligibility rules that Ms. Mills was allowed in when she was an instructor at Liza Jackson?
We do not.
And I mean, if I may, Mr.
No, sure,
Chairman,
please go ahead.
I mean, we've stated, unfortunately, Ms. Mills, I don't think there's a administrator, a district staff member, and I certainly can't speak for other board members, but I think we've all said, we all wish that our state and our legislature did a better job of funding Florida public education. And unfortunately, they have created a categorical fund that we have some great, phenomenal instructors that never even had to take the SAT or ACT And so they're not even allowed
I
to,
agree.
to apply
It's-
for this.
this whole
It's
thing probably is not
ridiculous.
fair.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's where, and I certainly don't want to speak for Mr. Chambers, but I think that's where we feel pitted against each other in that we're having, and then to further complicate things, it's almost as if the legislature did this on purpose by making a statute that's so ambiguous that creates a situation where we are asking the State Attorney General's office for clarification on the statute when our legislators could have made it very clear who was eligible, who was not eligible, and could have taken out some of this ambiguity. But they decided to state that, and you got told by the Florida Department of Education, well, it's up to each school district.
Right, so why did our school district opt not to accept my score when, and let me just read an email, because I'm like, I want to make sure I really understand, because I know sometimes, you think you hear something and you don't. Hi, thanks for your time. This was from me to Lindsay Maxey. I know we're all busy. I just want to make sure I understand exactly what is being said by the district regarding my issue. The district has opted not to use estimated composite scores, even though the FLDOE deems it perfectly fine using the estimated composite, not the estimated percentage, but the estimated composite, to meet the qualification for the Best and Brightest Scholarship. I'm asking you because this doesn't sound like what OCSD would want. Did I misinterpret something? And the reply from Ms. Maxey, yes, you have interpreted my email correctly. OCSD did not accept estimated composite scores for anyone either year that Best and Brightest has been in effect. We are waiting the new legislation for the coming year. So, and when I talk to the state, they're dumbfounded. They're like, your county's supposed to be coming up with these rules. And you're supposed to have a little list. So I think we need a committee to everybody contribute and come up with a checklist, rules and regs for Best and Brightest, so there isn't all this ambiguity everywhere. And ours may be different from another county's because this says each county is allowed to do their own thing. And this also says rulemaking authority, there is no rulemaking authority to the DOE, and the DOE has no authority to supervise or review the eligibility determinations. So I wonder how the audit factor's getting in here. And if it is, it makes me wonder, why are you only looking at that side? What about the 10 teachers that qualified and their stuff was not sent in? Would that be flagged in the audit? And it's coming, the money's coming from the state of Florida. It's not hurting our district any.
Ms. Mills, just one moment real quick. Mr. McInnes, can you give us an update on where we are with our Attorney General's opinion?
The request has been drafted, and we're finishing a memo that has to go with it to send over.
All right.
Did you sent the memo?
It's not sent yet, no, sir.
Well, we do know now we're running out of time.
But we
You
have.
do understand what the deadline is.
I understand, but what the district has done in regard to those persons I'm asking the question about, they have been given the opportunity to go ahead and send their stuff in so it can be submitted. If that opinion turns out that they can't be paid, we simply won't pay that money.
That is, thank you. That's all I wanted, is someone to send my stuff in. And the county, the HR would not, because they said I didn't meet the criteria.
Well, I'm not
I want
addressing.
someone
I
to do
understand.
me. Well, who will be in my corner?
One comment, Chairman. I'm fearful that the question that we're asking the Attorney General is not her question.
It is not.
So that's a problem. But
Well, will anyone be in my corner?
Oh,
HR
well,
will not send my paperwork in for the
we may be
6,000
working on it.
scholarship.
it seems to me that this is even less confused than the one we're asking. It's clear that charter schools are part of the district, otherwise we wouldn't be giving them that $7,000 some per student, because we're not allowed to give that to a private school.
No, but in terms of governance, they're on, but we understand the differences.
Yeah, the legislature thinks they're part, that's why they keep taking our money and giving it to them.
That's right.
So it appears to me that she got it from the charter school, therefore it was awarded, and she's still eligible, and the people in the state are, it appears, are confirming that in their opinions, telling us that it's our responsibility. You know, that's another one that if it comes to a vote, I would say just give her the money and we'll see if they try to do an audit.
I agree.
The question is, do they audit charter schools? Or do they just audit us because the charter school is in our school? I mean, they do audit the charter schools, but another clear legislative instruction, right?
Right. So, was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Can I-
Okay, so
Second.
it's a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Destin to do what? Submit the
Apply.
paperwork?
Yeah.
Okay, to apply?
Well, may
Yes,
may
sir.
I suggest
Yes,
that
sir.
if you're going to take action, it really shouldn't be addressed to just one single person. You should
Right.
address a category if you're going to make that decision.
And that was the intent of my motion. And I'm not even sure we're asking Ms. Jackson's people to do it. We can't tell them to do things, right? So what's the proper way to do that?
Has to go through HR.
Or we're asking Ms. Jackson. We're not asking, we can't ask her people either.
Right. I
So do we
mean,
direct it to Ms. Jackson to direct,
you could make a motion to the
to ask her?
superintendent, ask her to revisit that and to give her the board's perception of what you think that should happen, and then she can take that and get back with staff and decide what to do with it.
So moved.
Does second still stand, Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Okay, so open to discussion then.
I have a couple
Yeah,
of questions. Ms. Mills, I know I had looked, because of our other issue with our pre-KD and our adult ed instructors, I'd looked at other districts and what they were and weren't doing, and like you said, a FAQ that they create and things like that. Do you know, where you're getting your estimated score from? Is it from ACT?
Yeah, it's the
And so
official
they're
report.
giving you an estimated score, but other districts say that the estimated score isn't an official score. But like you said, I'm sure there's some districts that do.
It's up to each district to decide if they want to accept that or not. Carrie Louch, the senior state lead client relations for Florida, is the ACT counterpart. And I had a whole letter from her, and she said, please have your HR department call me if they have any questions.
And so I guess what I'm stating is my understanding, and Mr. Chambers or Ms. Jackson, please correct me if I'm wrong, we do have a FAQ, a matrix, if you will, of what we do and don't accept as eligible. And so as a district, we have standardized that estimated scores are not official scores.
Why would our school district want to do that? Why, when you could award teachers that took this 30 years ago and missed it by 1 point because they were 17, if the district had the authority, and they do, to say, you know what, we'll accept what the ACT lady explains is a valid score, and to account for the equal difficulty of the test, I guess I just wonder that. And my other thing is, going back to once you get the scholarship, as long as you maintain a highly effective eval, you should keep getting it. I thought this all was from the state, and the county just sort of put it out there. I didn't know. I learned that the HR department is where my roadblock was. That's sad.
Let's vote.
Well, I have a comment also, and I want to direct this to Mr. McInnes. Again, as much as I hear you and, feel for your concern, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're not rushing something through here that legally, can come back and make it even hard on us, but harder on her if she's got to pay the money back.
I have not looked into the issue that she's raised here tonight. Was not aware of the question. I mean, I can look at it, but I don't know that I'm going to get a clearer answer than I do as to the pre-KD or the career technical.
Which is what we've already asked you to do.
Right, right.
Have you already submitted our question?
No, so I've
to-
drafted it. It should go out this week to the Attorney General.
And if I understand
I mean,
correctly.
so my question would be, do you want another question added to the?
That's kind of where I'm going.
Right, that's-
And the second part of that, though, maybe we ought to hear first, is I think the school board is awaiting a recommendation from the superintendent, her staff, about all of this. Is that correct? We've still yet to cast a summary vote on how this is going to be submitted. Is that correct, Mr. Chambers? If I remember correctly, didn't we set that aside earlier? Or have we already voted on that?
No, we haven't, you're right.
Sorry, do you mind restating your question?
Yes, have we already voted on your recommendation for how we proceed with this, or have we not?
Yes, sir.
I thought the vote was that we had not voted.
We did.
The
And
August
last
board.
time
We set it
discussed-
aside.
Last time we discussed it, we ended up leaving it for Mr. McGinnis to get back with us, and that's how we left it. And that's where, and the only thing is, you know, we've been talking for months
I know.
on the one thing,
I
and
know.
now, the only thing different in this young lady
Right.
is one thing, is she has received it already. And we back into whether she's right, who's right, and there may be no wrong in the thing. The thing is the fact that the woman has received it, as Mr. Dessler made a clear thing, is we treat the charter school like they part of the school district because of the law. Well, to me, the fact that the woman has received the scholarship, I say that we give her the benefit of the doubt, and then if it comes down the road, that at some point in time, and I don't think you'll see it no time soon, truthfully, but I mean, I
all
think
change
it's fair,
in
you know, I'm gonna lean to the fairness of the employee and saying that the motion Mr. Dessler's made, I think is an excellent motion, and I think we're being fair to the individual. Now, in the meantime, if the information happens to come back from the state or wherever that says we cannot do it, or if it comes back and says we have sole authority after the superintendent recommends it, then that's the direction we go, and we've already taken care of the lady.
Okay.
And as I said, I think you're all dreaming if you think that Mr. McGinnis is fixing to come back here with an answer that says, no, you can't do this or you can do it. But until that time, that's how we left it, Mr. Chairman. But in this case, it's a little different because this lady has already received it. And that's the reason that I would support it, because I'm gonna lean toward trying to be helpful to the employee. If we find out later, then we have to say, I'm sorry, you can't receive it. But until that time, I definitely think, being fair to her, that we ought to at least send her paperwork in and do it to where she'll be eligible until,
And then
if
they
we
can
find
say
out
no.
between now and then that she's not, then no harm. On the other hand, if it drags on for a year or two, at least we've sent her paperwork in, she's been made eligible, she's received her money. And that's how I think it's being fair to her.
At least you tried, and I really appreciate
That's how I
that.
think it's being
That-
fair to you.
All right, then, so that's the motion. Is there any further discussion on that?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Mr. Rush, go ahead.
Mr. Bryant? Go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
You know, again, and just to explain to the public, I mean, we are law officers. We are here not to create it, but to follow it. And I think it's fair to say, you know, what's it going to hurt if we wait until Mr. McGinnis gets a ruling? Because I agree, we might not, it might just come up with a dream here that, you know, but then once we get a hearing, you know, something from the Attorney General, then at least we can move forward with it and do exactly, you know, what has been proposed here tonight. So.
Okay. Mr. Rush?
And I was just going to say, my understanding was the school district has to submit our list by December 1st. Is that correct? And so, yeah, again, we're hoping to hear back. There's a good chance we won't. But is it possible to amend your draft letter to include 2 questions? Because really, there's 2 questions in Ms. Mills' situation. One is an estimated score and official score. And then 2, if somebody was eligible at a charter school, are they deemed eligible if they transfer to a district public school?
Well, let's vote, Lamar, one way or the other.
I know. All right, any other discussion?
I may be able to look at that issue and give you an answer. Like I said, I just have not looked at this question, so I may be able to look at the issue of the charter school versus here, the eligibility. All I would say is, though, I know that the statute talks about once you're eligible, unless you're, but I haven't had a chance to talk to the staff, because if there were an eligibility determined that could have been an error, I don't think the statute would cause you to have to keep pushing that error along.
Right.
I don't know that, though, is what I'm saying.
But what are we on hurt? We're not hurting
I'm not
one thing.
I'll do what you're telling me to
by going ahead and
do.
at least giving the lady an opportunity to send in her paperwork. And then make sure if it ends up she's eligible or not eligible. But the fact that we don't keep not allowing her paperwork or nothing to be sent in is not fair. Now, if Miss Jackson and her staff may come back and they say, no, there's no way, fine and good, but the way it sits now, the woman can't even be considered. And that doesn't make any sense, to try to be fair to the individual. And nobody, hey, whatever, it may end up she don't never get a dime, but at least we need to give her the opportunity to get her money. And if we don't let her send her paperwork in, we know what the answer is. She's definitely not going to get the money. And that's just old common sense.
But if I can, Mr. Chairman, and all due respect to Mr. Walker, we're not, if we don't vote for Mr. Walker's motion tonight, we're not saying that.
It's not my motion, Ms.
I'm
Rush, it's
sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Desson's
Desson's
motion.
correction. Sorry, didn't know that was. We're not saying that Ms. Mills won't be eligible. We're just saying, let's wait, allow more time for you to research the 2 questions that I asked this evening, possibly hear back from the Attorney General, because we still have to December. We haven't submitted anybody's eligibility yet. And I mean, I just have concerns that I don't want to affect just one person, that we could be missing others. And I would rather have clarification to standardize across the board on, so that all eligible teachers or teachers who might be eligible could submit an application by the December 1st deadline. And if we vote this evening, my understanding is we're just voting for this one individual. Is that correct?
The motion was anyone who was in her class or had the same set of
And
issues.
unless you're willing to withdraw your motion before we consider what you're doing, by Robert's Rule of Order, we're supposed to vote on his motion.
I didn't hear you making an amendment.
I didn't.
All right.
Thank you.
So the motion is, then, Mr. Destin, let's make sure we understand what it is, that the superintendent look at this group of employees
with similar circumstances
and do what?
We are asking that she be made eligible to apply.
Eligible to apply. Okay? All right. Any points of clarification on that? Board members? All right, everybody ready to vote? All right, all in favor? All opposed? 3-2. Motion passes. Okay. All right, so we spent 35 minutes on that item, Ms. Mills, and that wasn't even on the agenda. All right, let's go ahead to the next blue card that I have.
Public hearing.
Excuse me?
We have public hearing.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bryan. All right, let's go ahead and recess this meeting, and we'll move to the public hearings. This meeting is recessed. We'll convene the public hearings. Scroll on down, board members, all the way down. to 7.1. This is the
17.
public, excuse me?
17.
17.1. A public hearing for the adoption of a new job description for a document data technician presented by Ms. Lindsay Maxey, Program Director, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here to speak to this job description tonight? Seeing none, motion by Mr. Walker,
Second.
second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Let's go ahead and go to 17.2. Public hearing for the adoption of a revised job description for TSA Instructional Technologist presented by Ms. Lindsay Maxey, Program Director, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here to speak to this job description tonight?
Move it.
Seeing none, motion by Mr. Walker,
Second.
second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we'll close the public hearing, and we will reconvene our regular school board meeting, moving back up to public comment. All right, so now, Ms. Felix, I've got a blue card for you, and I think you've been here before, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir, I have.
All right, and so, Mr. McInnes, I know that you'll give Ms. Felix.
So you'll have 4 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, sir. And my name's Leah Felix. I live at 4880 Track Street, Crestview, Florida. Okay. I'm here today to talk and inform you all of an incident that happened concerning my daughter, Katie. I'll give you guys a little backstory to it. On October 2nd, Katie was at PE when another little girl ran into the back of her, causing her to fall. At no point was the coach aware, nor did he even witness the incident. My daughter approached the coach, who seemed to be involved in intense conversation with another female coach. Katie was crying and had told Coach Kellogg that she was hurt. I want to make this next part very clear.
And Ms. Felix, I'm going to ask that we not use individuals' names.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay. I want to make this next part very clear. He did not send Katie to the nurse. I never received a phone call. And there was no accident report filled out. Katie has a green stick fracture, which I was told by the doctor is also considered a break in her left wrist. She's scheduled to get a cast on tomorrow. Well, depending with the weather. Can you imagine how my daughter must have felt? She was in pain. She was crying. All she wanted was for me to be called. Instead, Katie and her injury were ignored. I immediately reached out to Northwood Principal on October 3rd. She never returned my call. Then Thursday, I reached out to the superintendent's office, which I left a voicemail. I believe after placing a call this morning to HR to receive a formal complaint form is the only reason I got or received a call back from the superintendent's office and the principal today. Trying not to use names, so
Thank
makes
you, Ms. Felix.
I also find it extremely ironic that after hanging up with both he's present, his office, Mr. Chambers' office, the superintendent's office called me 2 minutes later. We can all fit the pieces together. I'm just wondering, has nothing at all been learned by the school district in the past year and a half? I'm not going to go over what policy or procedures were overlooked concerning my daughter. I believe we all know what they are. I will say that there continues to be a lack of accountability and responsibility for the safety and well-being of our children in the school district. There is no excuse for my daughter not to have been sent to the nurse. There is no excuse why I was never contacted. I should not be the one reaching out to the school. It should have been the school contacting me from the very beginning. Had there been proper supervision and policies followed, my daughter may have made it to the doctor sooner. Maybe the whole injury could have been avoided from the start. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Felix. All right, so I see I have a card here for Katie. That must be Miss Katie. Ms. Felix, pull that line. There you go. That's right. Hi, Miss Katie.
Hi, my name is Katie. I have a broken wrist. I fell at PE at school, and I went up.
That's okay. We got some folks here that'll help. Man, to hold it, I don't know.
up to the coaches and told them I was hurt. They said I should get some water. I asked them if I could sit under the pavilion, and my friend teared me up. She's my best friend. I was crying, and I wanted them to call my mom. I feel upset and sad because I feel like they didn't care.
Thank you, Miss Katie. I'm sorry your arm is hurt.
Okay.
Ms. Felix, is there anything else? Board members, any comments or questions? Okay, well, I'm glad that you did get a call back eventually, as I understand it. I know that sometimes, for whatever reasons might be, certainly feel free to call school board members. I mean, sometimes we can even help or assist with that.
Well, the sad thing about it is I shouldn't even have to. I was never
understand.
called by the school.
No, ma'am, I understand.
You know, I mean, she didn't go to the nurse.
I am curious,
You know.
though. Did Katie tell her regular teacher or classroom teacher that her arm was hurting when she went back to class? Do you know?
No, PE is her last period of the day.
The last
So I
class.
picked her up from school,
I see.
and she got in the
Okay.
car crying.
Okay, so it happened at the end of the day, is what I'm hearing. And
Yeah,
it
she goes
wasn't
to
a-
PE at 2,
All right,
and they
so
get
there-
out of school at 3.
So there wasn't a chance then for her to tell her teacher to give you a call or to go to the nurse? I
Well, she
understand.
did go up to the coach and
Right.
told him.
I got
Yeah.
that part. Yes, ma'am, I got that. All right.
I have a
Mr.
question.
Duff?
I have a question.
I was just wondering if we have a policy on injured children that, was it followed, it wasn't followed? It's
Well,
fuzzy?
this is our first opportunity. This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Good deal.
When did you call my office?
Thursday afternoon.
And
Your
who
assistant called
responded?
me, Mary Adams, this morning.
She called you this
Directly
morning?
after I got off the phone with Brandy Hand.
Well, I can assure you,
Like 1 minute.
we have many, many voice messages. And it takes her sometimes 2 or 3 days to even get through the things because we have so many. But she did call you back. And what did she tell you?
That she would get a hold of the principal, or have you get a hold of the principal.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you got around to that today or not.
Well, today's been a very busy day. We've had a lot going on, but this is the first I'm hearing of this. And Donna Good is such a conscientious principal. I would like the opportunity to speak to Miss Good and have her speak to Coach Kellogg. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming, Ms. Felix. Thank you too, Katie. All right, board members, that takes us through public comment. Let's move on down. Section 6 would be, there are no administrative appointments. Section 7, committee and staff reports. We covered those in the workshop. Let's move on down to consent agenda. And so I'm looking for a motion.
Move it.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda. Need a second?
Second, that's for
Second.
those 3 removed items?
Yes, sir. We have
Okay.
3 that were pulled to discussion. So, second by Mr. Destin. Any more discussion about this? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Vote carries 5-0. So let's slide on down now. The way this agenda's set up, we're going to first do our, 9.0, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. All right, 9.1, Deferred Retirement Option Program Drop, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction. All right, 9.2, Out of Field Report for the 2018-2019 school year, presented by Mrs. Peak, Program Director of Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent.
Move it.
That was close, but I'm going to give it to Ms. Thrush this time. Motion by Ms. Thrush, second by Mr. Walker. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? 5-0. 9.3, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush,
Second.
second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Votes 5-0. 9.4, Employment Separations, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
I'll move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush,
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.5, employee transfers, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. Need a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Carries 5-0. 9.6 is deleted. 9.7, employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.8, employee suspension, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion?
Move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.9, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. Looking for a motion.
Move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.10, leave without pay, presented by Mr. Marcus Chambers, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. Need a motion?
Move it.
Motion by Ms. Thrush.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, now, discussion agenda. Moving to item 8.11 was moved. Item 8.11 reads, RFQ 19-01, Construction Total Program Management, TPM Services, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. And which one of you was the, Mr. Bryant, that's you, sir?
Dr. White, I would like to make a motion that we table this item, and the reason why I would like to table this item was it's a very big contract. I think with everything that we had going on last week, I'd like to have the opportunity to watch the videos of the presentations, and I would like to bring this back to the next board meeting.
Motion by Mr. Bryant to table.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Thrush to table. So here we are.
Just one question. Well, there's no debate on the motion to table.
No, sir, I think we're
Okay.
supposed to vote. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? All right, the motion carries 3-2. All right, so that's tabled. All right. Item 8.12, tag on bid over $25,000. Allen J. Fleet Sales, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. All right,
All
Mr.
right,
Destin,
I
is
brought
that
that
yours?
one up.
Yes, sir.
We discussed this at the workshop rather extensively. Mr. Bolton, I think, got some information on leases. At least he contacted me, and I take it for granted he contacted the rest of you. It was not an official quote. It was, I think he talked to some folks in a couple of the other counties. The issue I have with this is this and the lawnmower on the next one that I asked add up to $250,000. And I question where our priorities are when we have so many other things that are directly related to more important issues in my mind. One being the covers over the portables. And we have some other issues. I toured one of our high schools last week in which we have 34 students in a room that's about twice the size of my Suburban. And it may have been fixed, but at the time, and I'm led to believe that for quite some time, the fire exit doors that have big signs on them that say "do not block" are blocked with chairs, not on one side, but on both sides. And so those are the kind of things I think we need to fix. And I think we can get the vehicles through either an extended lease or finance them and pay for them in 4 years and use some of the money that's in that capital to address, you know, these issues. And I'm sure there are others that are floating around that are pretty important to the health, safety, and welfare of the students. So I would vote against this motion. And as a matter of fact, I'll make a motion that we give Mr. Bolton an opportunity to go back and explore either a lease like the one we're doing with the telephone system, or at the end of the lease, we own it, or financing so that we can spread the cost of these vehicles out over a period of years and still have some of the money available to address these other two issues.
Okay. Board members, you heard there's a motion by Mr. Destin.
That's to give him an opportunity to go and look at another option for us.
All right, so we're looking for a second to Mr. Destin's motion.
I'll second it.
All right, second by Mr. Bryant. Any further discussion, board members? Ms. Thrush?
Well, I share Mr. Destin's concerns. And again, as I stated at the workshop Thursday, I hate that we're in the position of pitting needed projects against needed projects. My frustration is that we've had some capital items brought before the board, and we still don't have a plan for covered walkways for the portables. And I know when I had made my request to the superintendent, I believe I stated to have a plan by the second board meeting in October. So it's not the second board meeting in October. But I did bring this issue up, or we did discuss it at our capital budget workshop. And again, I know we need these vehicles, and I'm not saying we don't need the following item that's also on discussion. I guess I would just like us to have a plan and a budget for covered walkways for those portables before agreeing to spend money on these two items. Not that they're not a need, they are needs. But I would withhold my vote on these two items until we have a plan in place for covered walkways to our portables.
And I point out that's exactly what my motion is doing. I'm not saying don't buy them. I'm just saying bring us, and I'll table it to the next meeting. That gives us, what, 2 more weeks? Is that enough time, Ms. Jackson?
Well, do we need to resolve, are you retracting then your first?
No, I'm just amending
You're
it
adding it.
to put a time certain. So at that point, if we can't come up with a plan, then we have to make a vote on go forward with the vehicle or not.
All right, so the motion then is to hold in abeyance the purchase of these vehicles for 2 weeks.
Table the decision for 2 weeks.
And you're asking for a plan for coverings? Is that what I heard?
We are asking.
Well, I've previously asked.
Yeah, and that's already been a motion that was passed. My motion is just dealing with the purchase of these vehicles tonight.
Okay. All right.
And then,
And
to request.
options, I think
Yes,
you
and
asked
request
about.
the option on an extended lease or somewhat like we did on the telephone system, or finance them for 4 years so we can loosen up a little money to go toward the other issues.
2 weeks. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Mr. Bryant, you're still good with that motion, with the 2-week window? Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? All right, motion passes 4-1. Okay. All right, 8.13, tag on bid purchase over $25,000, Jerry Pate Turf and Irrigation, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent. Okay, Mr. Destin, I think this is yours too, right?
All of it was the same related issue, and so it's the same argument to
Sure.
a motion to
Right.
table that purchase for the 2 weeks to treat it much the
All
same
right,
way.
so Mr. Destin's making the same motion to hold this one in abeyance for 2 weeks. Okay, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any further discussion on this particular item? Seeing or?
Well,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
the cost estimate that the group will get together, there were some folks who agreed to give us their capital funding as part of that, and that would be very helpful. I believe it was you that agreed to give us capital, that you're, what is it, 74,000 or whatever it is, that you guys get in order to help pay for these covered walkways. And if that still holds true, you need to let me know so that when we're doing the cost for this, we'll be able to take that out of it. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jackson. All right, so hearing no other discussion, looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor of Mr. Destin's motion, raise your hand. All opposed? All right, motion passes by 4-1. All right, so that gets us through the discussion item. All right, let's see, construction program owners representatives business, 11.1. Mr. Walker, do you have anything?
Yes, I don't really have anything except the motion we just passed to table to RFQ. I have to feel like that it's probably the biggest insult to me that I've ever had, because I've been on this board for 24 years. And it's the first time I've ever known when a board member was chairing a committee. In 24 years, this is the first time I've ever known that now, after we spent hours and hours and hours in the direction of this board, plus the fact that for 23 years, Ms. Rush said 1 year, I served 23 years as representative for this board, going through $300 million in projects. But when we went and met and spent all kinds of time and everything, but if we're going to set the precedent of now, every time that somebody loses a bid, that they can complain to a board member or someone, and now that you say you want to see a video and all that, I mean, it's unbelievable, because if that's the case, we don't need to have any more committees. We just need to let the board, as a complete board, make the decisions. And when you talk about the great deal of money, truthfully right now, it's almost no money whatsoever, but here we have a firm that has been there for 20-something years. The finance officer, I don't want to involve her, but if you ask her personally, has she ever had one problem with the firm that we've had all these years? If you go talk to the principals, they 99% of them are very, very complimentary and talk about what great work they do. Plus the fact that the company that lost, when one of our staff members asked them a question, had they ever been late on a project, a school project anywhere? They said absolutely not. Well, it just so happened that I was in charge many years ago with this thing. When we built Davidson Middle School, we actually, Jacobs and the school board had to take the project over and finish the school. Well, I also asked them, because this school board and our policy has always been that we, because of the local contractors throughout the Panhandle, that we did not want the person that had the contract to do the work, that we wanted to bid it out. Well, when I asked them the question, it's there, that they admitted that they do over 90% of all the work themselves. But the main thing is, y'all don't need me to go do what I've done all these years and then spend all the time we did. And if that's the case, then is this board now fixing to everything that comes up, then whoever can lose can now come to this board and say, well, I lost, so now I want you as a board to make a decision. That first of all, is terribly insulting to me. It's terribly unfair. And the second thing is the fact that the process we used was so fair, it was unbelievable. I went out of the way to even give them more time and everything. And it's insulting to me, Mr. Bryant, for you to even suggest to doing this, because if y'all fixing to set a precedent, I'm fixing to go to the House. But for you to set a precedent that now, as you form committees, that you now want to say, well, wait a minute, I didn't like the way that went, so now I want to have come to the whole board. Well, I'm insulted, very insulted, and I want you to know I think you're totally was wrong and out of line, because in the 20-something years, it's not just this, it's every committee that we've had. I've never known the board not to approve once the recommendations came back. And for this board to do what y'all just did is terribly unfair to me, and it's not the right thing to do for this school district, because it'd been one thing if this firm that got the bid, if they'd have been sorry, I promise you one thing, and I told Miss Scallion, if she came to me and said, look, they was screwing up, they wasn't doing, but it's not true. If their record hadn't been good, it'd be one thing, but that's not the case. And y'all have personally insulted me tonight by doing what you did, and I want you to know that. And not only that, you've not done a favor to this school district and the kids. And I want y'all to know that.
Any comments, board members?
I would like to make a comment first of all.
Sure.
And Mr. Walker is leaving, so I have the utmost respect.
You can address it to me.
Yeah, I have the utmost respect for Mr. Walker. If you hear why I wanted to table it was because with everything that had been going on last week, we were tied up. I didn't get a chance to review everything, and I want to have that opportunity. I'm not saying that I'm going to want to change the decision. I just want to, as an elected person, it is my obligation to the people that I represent to make the best decision. And that's all I want. I want the opportunity just to be able to look at everything, have the time. All I'm asking is just for another couple of weeks, just like we've asked about some of the issues that we tabled here. All I'm doing is just asking for that. It was not meant to be an insult to Mr. Walker. On several occasions, I've talked about how much respect I have for Mr. Walker because he is very knowledgeable of what he does. All I was just asking was for that opportunity just to review everything that was brought to us and give me just a little bit more time, just because I felt like I needed a little bit more time. And for the people I represent, I owe that to them. It wasn't meant to be an insult to Mr. Walker. I would never do that. And and all those that know me know that my heart is in this school district, and I do my best to go out there and represent our people. And if he feels that way, I'm sorry, but that's not what my intentions were.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryan.
I'll just make one quick comment, and we all respect Mr. Walker, but I didn't look at it as an insult to him. I looked at it as a professional courtesy to a fellow board member who said he wanted to look at it a little longer. Doesn't mean we're going to overturn what they said. Does mean that if Mr. Bryan wants to look at it a little more, then I'm going to respect that.
I understand. And Ms. Rush, you have something?
And I would just add the same thing. I didn't have a chance to attend the day of the presentations. And because it was videoed, I would like time to review the video of those presentations. And I agree with both comments that Mr. Destin and Mr. Bryant made.
All right, Ms. Rush. All right, board members, well, moving on. Item 12.1, CACI Task Order Number 2-119 for the installation of Salto padlocks at Okaloosa Technical College, presented by Mr. Dustin Keith, Specialist, Fleet Management, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
I'll move it.
Motion by Mr. Destin, second by Ms. Thrush. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. 12.2, CACI Task Order Number 2-110 for a district-wide Avaya Unified Communications System upgrade, presented by Mr. Dustin Keith, Specialist, Seat Management, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Ms. Thrush. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. All right, Mr. Williams, your business, sir.
Just one item, Mr. Chairman. We have had a bid protest filed in regard to an RFP for some financial services, and I would like to ask tonight permission to retain Attorney Franklin Harrison and the firm of Hand Arundel in order to handle the administrative part of that protest. It likely will end up back to the board, and in that event, I will need to represent the board. And so that's before you tonight to approve an engagement letter with that firm.
Have we used him?
Yes, sir. They actually handled a bid protest for the board several years ago.
Okay. All right. All right. Board members, any questions? I think Mr. McInnes is going to need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Destin. Need a second? Second by Ms. Thrush. Any discussion? All right. Let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Superintendent, I know you're under the weather, but do you have anything?
Well, we've been working the better part of the day to working with emergency operations, working with Mr. Kutsaratis. He spent quite a bit of time with him today, making decisions about what we need to do. And I'd like to, first of all, thank you, Nick, because he's going to get to spend the whole time down there in the Emergency Operations Center starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he'll be down there and be very busy.
Sounds like some of those school hurricane shelters in the old days.
Yes. We have been able to prep food service with required amounts of food that we may need. Mr. Jay McGinnis has been on the fuel, getting extra fuel in so that we are able to take care of our buses. He did send me an email today talking about the dangers of buses in high winds, and that the recommendation is not to drive those buses in winds that exceed 35 miles an hour. So he was filling me in on that. We did open a shelter this afternoon at Davidson Middle School at 5 o'clock today. The next shelter that will be opened, if I understand correctly, Mr. Kutsaratis, is the Northwest Florida State College, and then they will open Shoal River Middle School. And they anticipate us having some folks. If we don't have a lot of folks from our community, it may be like it was the last time. All those folks that are over around Apalachicola and in all those areas will be coming our way. So these principals never fuss when they have to do this. I bet they're sitting sometimes down there in those offices getting a lot of work done when they have a chance to do that. But I want to thank Nick and his team today and the sheriff's office, because there were a lot of conversations that went on this morning and this afternoon, and we are ready. We will not be in school Tuesday and Wednesday. At some point on Thursday afternoon, we will be doing a call out to everyone to let them know the decision for Thursday. The commissioner called me this morning on my cell phone, which is unusual, to let me know that we just need to be prepared, because they're anticipating this to be quite an event. So we need to know that we may not be able to make decisions, and communication may be an issue. And she brought that up to us and brought that up to me this morning. So we've been talking about how we're going to communicate and what we're going to do and how we're going to get the word out. And also, we've asked all of our principals to be at their schools tomorrow morning to ensure that if any little child shows up or somebody drops a child off and he's not supposed to be there, that they'll be able to help that child get back home and get with their parents. But Nick, I appreciate the work you've done today. I know it's been a mammoth task, and it's very difficult to make these decisions. Mr. Horton is already on. This is FTE week. Date certain is this week. Mr. Horton and his staff have already been speaking with their contacts at DOE, and the commissioner assured us that they would be willing to extend the FTE count time, which is great for us. But just wanted you to know there's a lot more that we worry about rather than just the wind and the rain. There are a lot of things, and we anticipate, in some counties, they're really anticipating their roads being washed out. So, and for a lot of counties, especially the rural ones, that's a big deal. They can't get to the kids, and the kids can't get to them. So I'm just saying to everyone, be safe, take care, make sure you're listening to what they tell you, because we don't want to. I remember Opal, and I think y'all remember Opal, and that was quite something. And I just want our kids and our families to be safe, and all of our employees to be safe. That's all.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, Mr. Destin, anything?
I just wanted to recommend an article in Popular Mechanics on Guide to Safe Schools, and I'm going to give this to Mr. Kutsaratis. A lot of good stuff in here, a lot of good ideas, and it makes for a good read. Other than that, I've done enough tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Destin. Ms. Thrush.
Just to tag on to Ms. Jackson's comments, I hate to make you talk further, but I forgot that it was FTE week, and just want the public to be aware that that's how we get funding. So for especially for our transportation system that is sorely underfunded, not to have FTE days to count the number of kids who are on the buses would severely impact our transportation budget. Also, because it's the end of the 9 weeks and we have a scheduled teacher work day on Monday, but we're missing 2 days of school this week. Makeup test and things of that nature.
Steve? Mr. Horton's always on this stuff. He's always telling me in advance.
Yes, ma'am. It's part of the contract in terms of teacher days of work. So that Monday will be a teacher work day, student holiday, but we've extended already by email to all teachers the deadline for submitting grades for the first 9-week grading period till next Friday at the end of the day. So from originally Monday at the end of the day till Friday, that gives teachers, if they choose to do so, the opportunity to in essence backfill some assessments and pieces that they may have missed out on because of the days out this week.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for that. And then I just did want to say congratulations to everyone, all of our staff, all of the students, instructors, administrators, non-instructional staff. To be already completed with the first 9 weeks of school is an incredible feat. On Thursday, I mentioned that the Niceville High School Choral program already has tickets available for their winter performance at Maddie Kelly Arts in November on the 27th. But Ms. Jackson reminded me that the All-County Chorus concert is coming up this month on October 22nd. That's a Monday. It's also at Maddie Kelly Arts Center at 7 p.m. Again, we have phenomenal music programs in our county, and I'm always excited to hear the great musicians that have auditioned and worked really hard in preparation for the All-County Choral performance. And then I hope this isn't taken as a political plug because I'm not running for office, but I believe tomorrow is the last day to register to vote for the upcoming election. I don't care how you vote, how you're registered, who you vote for, but I hope everyone who has off tomorrow takes the time to register to vote if they haven't. And the reason why I think that's so important is regardless of who you vote for, I hope that we all do better to hold our elected officials accountable. I was reviewing Ms. Scallon's great annual financial report document, very thorough as always. And on Exhibit A, page VII or page 7, it basically states that we did have increased revenues this past school year based on increased enrollment and an increase, as we've stated previously, of $42 per student. But that it also states that the state mandated a rollback of our required local effort millage, an increase in the .748 mils compression, and really we are at a disadvantage because our legislators are rolling back our millage rate, and I just wanted to remind people that the 2018-2019 millage rate is the lowest it's been in 28 years, and it's 1.25 mils lower than it was 10 years ago, even though our school taxable value is approximately around the same it was 10 years ago. And so I hope that's my non-political plug, is that people register to vote, and then whoever you vote for or whoever's elected, that you hold them accountable if you are passionate about public education funding. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Mr. Bryant.
I have nothing tonight, sir.
All right. So, Mr. McInnes, I think that pretty much covers everything I've got on the agenda. Is there anything
One more
other than we got?
public comment.
Public comment, right. And all right, so is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? All right, I've already asked Mr. McInnes. He said we're good, so. We're adjourned.
All righty.